Hopped up the plane at LAX with a dream in my cardigan, saying, who's that guy with MC shaved into his chest hair, maybe? We've got the Cuban Missile Crisis, Julian Marquez, who shot a shot with Miley Cyrus, and that went up in a ball of flames. He's now taking on the Firecrotch himself, Smilin Sam Alvey, big-time fight mat at middleweight. And for Sam Alvey, this is his first fight at middleweight in 3.5 years. The last time out, it was a loss to Ramazan Ameev. And if you look at his 5-on-in, well, there's 4 losses and a draw, but not all losses are created equal. So let's go through those to start this off. He gets finished by Little Nog. That's a bad look 2.5 years ago.
That's an awful look.
He gets finished by Jimmy Crute. Well, that's going to happen. He loses the decision to Klidson Abreu. Okay. Then he loses to Ryan Spann. It was a split decision. I had it 29-28 Alvey. Spann looked awful in that fight.
You have every split decision for the guy who lost, so that's fine.
Go back and check it on Twitter from the time that it happened. And then he had a draw against Jung. And listen, Alvey more than likely won the first 2 rounds. Jung won the last round. And again, we talked about this in the Jung breakdown for his fight this weekend. But it was something like 17 had it for Alvey, 2 had it a draw, and 1 had it for Jung. So for Sam Alvey, his last 2 fights, very close to being wins. For Julian Marquez, he had so much time off between his last loss, where he took on Alessio Di Chirico, and his fight not that long ago against Maki Pitolo. Major back surgery, major injuries, wholesale changes to his camp, where he went from the notable Syndicate MMA. We've had a lot of Syndicate fighters on this card. He switched it up, went to Glory MMA and Fitness, and paid immediate dividends. The one thing that it didn't really, as far as fitness is concerned, Julian Marquez does not have the best cardio. It just so happened that he had slightly better cardio than Maki Pitolo on that night. But that was a slobber knocker of a fight if I've ever seen one.
I got bad news for you, Craig. This isn't going to be a great fight. I know we like to start these videos off by, oh, really excited for this one. This is one of the rare fights that I'm not overly excited for. Because with Sam Alvey, this is my problem. He's gotten so many opportunities from the UFC to actually make somewhat of a name for himself. They gave him Rashad Evans when he was on his last legs, and they fought to a split decision when Rashad Evans was barely even a fighter anymore. He barely threw a punch, and he was still almost able to beat Sam Alvey. This is my problem with Sam Alvey. I think he has decent power. I think he has okay submissions. I think he has some of the worst output in UFC history. I really do. I think Sam Alvey has an issue with being backed up to the cage, which I think Julian Marquez is going to be able to win this fight solely off cage control. And I hate that that's the thing I have to come to you guys with, that, oh, I think Marquez is going to win. But that's what Marquez does slightly better than Sam Alvey. Sam Alvey is more than happy to just give up double underhooks and have his back up against the cage. Now, I will admit that a lot of fighters who are able to do that to him are more primary grapplers than Julian Marquez. You look at guys like Klidson Abreu and others who are able, or do have more of a wrestling background, I should say, than Marquez, but they are able to get those double underhooks all the time on Sam Alvey. I'm not sure if it's just a position he struggles with in the gym, maybe, but it is something he gives up a lot in his fights. And even go back to the Little Nog fight. You kind of glossed over it. You only mentioned that one quick. Little Nog knocked him out. Little Nog doesn't fight anymore. He was 38 going into that fight. The fact that Little Nog was able to stop Sam Alvey, it's given me a lot of pause for Sam Alvey, who's now cutting an additional 20 pounds, who is already starting to look maybe a little bit chinny at 205. Now you're going to get rid of another 20 pounds of water from your body, which isn't going to help your durability at all. I'm not saying Julian Marquez is this dangerous striker, but all the signs are starting to point in Marquez's favor.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a tricky fight for anybody to take in Julian Marquez, unless you have A-plus cardio. That's the way to beat Julian Marquez. If you have decent takedown defense, you might be able to beat Julian Marquez. For Sam Alvey, he has pretty good takedown defense, but that's it. For Julian Marquez, he's the type of guy that strikes into the clinch, that takes you down, that wears on you. Those are usually the fights that Sam Alvey loses. So I look at this one, Matt. Julian Marquez in this fight, he is the favorite. I was initially kind of scared off it again because I didn't think Marquez looked spectacular against Pitolo. Pitolo had his moments. He was out striking Marquez. Marquez took so much time off, and his cardio is such a question. So for me, I hold it off my card. But Marquez, open minus 125. He's now minus 194. So quite a bit of money coming in on Marquez. Alvey open plus 105. He's now plus 159. Over on Tapology, 1,122 total votes. 86% Marquez. 69% by knockout. A lot of people are going with Julian Marquez to get the win. And hey, with James Krause in your corner, anything's possible.
I'm going to predict he wins. But no, Sam Alvey, I think this is it for him. Normally when you see a guy who's at the later stage of his career, now he's making a weight difference. I always panic when people change their weight. I guess I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent. But you either switch weights for one of two reasons. Either A, you feel like physically you just can't match whatever guys you're fighting with at your weight class, so you decide to move down in weight, or you're not fighting that well at your weight class for whatever reason, you're just not doing well, and you decide to make the change just for some drastic reason. For Sam Alvey, I've seen you at 185. You're the same fighter that you are at 205. I just think it's a bit of a weird move for him at this stage in his career, and he's the oldest 34-year-old of all time. I know their ages aren't that off, but the amount of years and I guess just really MMA wear and tear that Sam Alvey has had compared to Julian Marquez, it really isn't even comparable. So I do like Marquez in this
We'll
fight.
see if Sam Alvey sports a top to bottom mouth guard, because at one point he broke his jaw straight in the middle. I go Sisu on this one. So Matt, for the overall pick, we're both going with Julian Marquez to get the win. I'm really looking forward to this fight. You can still hear me with that, but it should be a good one. I mean, listen, we have a great main event that happens to be at middleweight between Kevin Holland, who's coming back after 2 weeks, and an absolute drubbing against Derek Brunson taking on Marvin Vettori. Should be a great one. Really looking forward to it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, Matt, as we always say. Let's get into it.